Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voices Beyond Borders, the podcast that explores everything related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as international exchange and education. My name is Francesco Bajos, your host, and I'm so happy to be back for our fifth episode, you guys. It's our fifth episode. In today's episode of Voices Beyond Borders, titled Queer Identities Among International Exchange Students, we'll be exploring strategies that foster inclusive environments and communities, as well as exploring Fulbright PRISM and the pivotal role it plays in the lives of international exchange Fulbrighters. Joining us today are three remarkable individuals, each with unique perspectives and experiences. So everyone, please help me in welcoming Claire Vandenhelder, a biracial, disabled, and non-binary anthropologist from the Netherlands, currently pursuing their master's in disability and human development at the University of Illinois, Chicago. We also have Anne-Laure Sabatier, a PhD student in American literature from France, awarded a Fulbright Foreign Scholarship for her first year at the University of South Carolina. Her research interests encompass women's writing, queer theory, and feminist studies. And also we have Tim Sensening. Tim is an accomplished lawyer and a distinguished graduate of the University of Virginia School of Law. He is the president, co-founder, and CEO of Fulbright PRISM, a platform that plays a significant role in supporting LGBTQ plus Fulbrighters. Hello, everyone. How are you?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, thank you, Francisco.
I'm so happy that you guys could join us today. I know this episode is going to be very enlightening and thought-provoking for some. So guys, before we begin our discussion, can you please each introduce yourself very briefly for our listeners?
Hi, everyone. My name is Anne-Laure. I am 27 and I am from France. I'm currently in Columbia, South Carolina, and I'm in my second year of my PhD, which is a 5-year program. So I'm still doing coursework, but I'm also teaching English 101, and currently I'm teaching a theme section on LGBTQ literature, which is going really good. So I'm really excited about this. I've also been chosen to be the Secretary of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion as part of the Graduate Student Association here at USC. So I'm really excited for the upcoming year.
We love that. Thank you so much, Anne-Laure. Tim?
Sure, thanks, Francesco, and it's nice to meet everyone. My name is Tim Sensenig. I use he, him pronouns. I was a 1617 ETA grantee to Germany. And after my Fulbright grant, I went to law school at the University of Virginia School of Law. And now I live in Washington, D.C. with my cat Scooter, and I practice in our trade group at a private law firm.
Thank you, Tim. Claire, all yours.
Those are really good introductions. Now I'm not sure what to say, but yeah, I'm Claire. I'm 27 years old. I'm now in Chicago. It's my second year in Chicago. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm still active in student party there. I did my undergrad at Leiden University, so I still have kind of one foot there, one foot on this side of the ocean. And right now I'm focusing on writing my thesis, kind of the proposal writing, and then hopefully I can start in December and have it all done by May. Yeah, what else? I think we'll get into a lot of the what else later.
Yeah, I'm
also.
sure. Well, good luck on your thesis. That's first thing. Okay, guys, so we're gonna begin with our questions. And first of all, I wanna hear from you guys as individuals. What does it mean for you to be a part of the LGBTQ community, especially in a global context? And how has your experiences abroad shaped or changed your perspective on what it means to be a queer person? There, you can go first if you want to.
Yeah, you sent us the questions beforehand and I read that one and I'm not sure how to answer it. It's such a broad question.
It is.
Yeah, I think so. I have to be honest, I identify as pansexual, so I have been in some straight passing relationships. So I haven't always felt that very strong connection with the LGBTQ community. until I started to get more friends who were also not straight, and until I also started to question my gender identity. I think then I felt a stronger connection, and then also my connection with disability and how that influences my gender identity. That really brought me into a very specific disability queer friendly space. And yeah, but I'm not like party going, like I don't go to like parties to meet people. So sometimes I do feel like it's maybe a little bit of an isolated experience.
Yeah,
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, because
I completely
I don't
understand.
really go out. I don't these kind of things. But yeah, I think moving to the US did change certain things because you start to understand it from different cultural perspectives also, and you start to connect with others, and you start to understand nuances and also like your own privilege, especially coming from the Netherlands. There's quite some privilege in that, yeah, identifying as queer, and then also having the space to identify as queer. So that really brought, put things into perspective.
Thank you so much, Claire. I actually have a similar experience I would want to share, but I want to hear from Tim and Anne-Laure first. So, guys, all yours.
Anne's looking at me, so I'll go. Thank you. I think for me, yeah, this was a hard one. I had to think about this too, Claire. I was like, "Whoa, this is really tricky." I think at a high level, I guess it's, I feel like I'm a part of this really, it's like big quilt of diversity and creativity and resilience. If that's not too cliche to say, but I like I consume queer culture, and I look around at, especially through my work with Fulbright PRISM, what various people within our community are doing. I'm just like continually impressed by the boldness and the courage exhibited by our siblings in the community, and I think it's just a really cool thing to be a part of. I think crossing borders and kind of as I grew up and explored the world more, I feel like in the United States, there's more siloing that happens among diverse communities. I think there's a lot more cultural tension and a lot more kind of, I don't want to say conflict, but I think in some cases it is conflict. There's this us versus them mentality in the United States that I actually felt less like when I was on my Fulbright in Europe, for example. And so kind of realizing that how that has shaped our communities here in America has been really interesting. So I think, like, I feel like I'm living in DC, and we have, we really are really deliberate about our queer spaces and our bars and our different venues, or like our shows and the way we consume culture. And when I go to Europe, it's a little less centralized, and it's a little, more free flowing. And I feel like people are a little bit more just kind of accepted for who they are. And I think that's a result of, this constant conflict we have with other cultural groups in the States, where, we don't really feel safe just going to a straight bar, whereas I might in Europe, in certain European countries. And so I don't know, I'm not saying that's totally the case everywhere, but I think that's kind of a nuance that I learned after traveling and exploring my queer identity overseas.
Yep, I have to agree with you, as you said, like in Europe, like queer spaces are not as centralized as in the USA, and I think that's the case also with Lebanon. Lebanon's queer spaces are very centralized to the capital, which is Beirut. And the more you go outside of Beirut, the less you see queer identities or queer individuals or any mention of anything related to queer culture.
I definitely relate to what both people before me said. I have a lot of privilege in my identities. I am straight passing. Just last night, people were like, "Oh, I thought you were straight," and I'm trying not to take that the wrong way, but it's also I'm from France, which is very developed country, and it's European, so it has a space for queer culture, even though it's regional, depends on where you go. But here in South Carolina, I had to think twice about where I was going and why I was going there and how I wanted my identity to be here. So it turns out I'm the vice president of the LGBTQ Graduate Association, so it's going great. But Columbia, the university, quite liberal. The rest of South Carolina, I don't think I would out myself as easily. And I'm someone who's been out for 14 years. That's one of the first things I tell about myself when I meet new people, because I don't have time anymore to be with people who are not sure how they feel about the LGBTQ community. I don't have time for that anymore. And I guess my first experience with being gay abroad was when I studied abroad in Ireland. So it was still Europe, but Anglophone countries have that space and that LGBTQ organizations in university that France doesn't, because we go to school to study and then we go home. There is clubs outside of school, but not in the school. So in Anglophone countries, I did find that space, and I think it really helped when I taught at Wellesley College, which is a women's college in the Boston area. It really opened a lot of perspectives for me because the space was so liberal, and it's a women's college, even though more identities are now welcome. It is a space, a safe space. It is, people are who they are, and I learned a lot about myself and others and how it is to share space and feel welcome in a space through that. So it was a bit of a shock going to a red state and feeling like my identity was going to be challenged, even though, as I said, my privilege as a white European straight passing woman does allow me to live more comfortably than other people with intersecting minorities that are more visible than mine.
Yeah, thank you, Anne, for that. Actually, your passage and everything. And this brings me back to my previous point. So I come from Lebanon, which is a very, very tiny country in the Middle East. And aside from that, I live in the north part of Lebanon and the mountains. So as you guys know, or most of our listeners know, once you start going outside of Beirut, the main capital of Lebanon, there's absolutely zero presence of any queer culture. It's considered this big no-no because Lebanon is a very religious country. So anything related to queer or like LGBTQ cultures is considered like a big abomination. It's disaster. It's the end of the world. And my entire introduction to queer culture before going to the US was either through books, movies, and social media. I was lucky to go to the USA, and guys, I went to Montana, which is technically not the best state for LGBTQ plus community people, but for me it was amazing because it was my first ever experience, like first-hand experience, live experience with queer individuals, with people who taught me what it means to be queer, like the fights, the challenges, the opportunities that comes also from being part of this community, but also the meaning of, we're gonna talk about this later on, like chosen family or like fighting for your rights. Even like nothing comes easily in life, and just having like a support system and a community that keeps educating you on the importance of coming together and creating such diverse environments is very important. So I think in a way we all share experiences being surrounded by such chosen families. Hello everyone, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, Sabal Public Library, for giving us this amazing space that we're filming in for the duration of the season. Thank you so much, Sabal Public Library. So guys, this brings me to my second question actually. As people who kind of identify within the LGBTQ plus community, what opportunities do you see arising from living abroad and experiencing all of this? And also, what are the challenges that you may have faced or you may have seen other people facing as well?
Do you mind if I go first?
Yeah, no, not at all.
This is a nice question. No, this is a nice question because I really felt a lot of freedom when I came here, and I do understand. I'm also in Chicago, so that's a very specific like environment, right? But I did feel a lot of freedom also because I was removed from my previous life and from my friends and family. And even though I did not feel restricted by them at the time, when I came here, I realized that I did feel restricted in some ways, and for trying out new things and trying kind of figuring myself out and being more adventurous, that was just a little bit difficult back home, I guess.
Yeah.
Mainly just because of my friends and family. And I really felt a lot of freedom. So one of the first things I did when I came here is I found a queer mosque that centers queer and Black disabled people, and I felt so accepted by them, and I felt really at home. So for me, that made me just really excited. So yeah, a lot of freedom, but also maybe a little bit less than Anna-Laura, but I do felt I was a little bit more cautious in my day-to-day life because of how I've seen the US being portrayed by the media. And then I was like, okay, I know Chicago is quite a liberal environment, but I still want to be careful because you don't know what kind of people you're coming across, like you're meeting. And because it's so diverse, especially politically speaking, I have students whose parents they cannot even tell them they are queer because it's too dangerous, right? So I really felt that much closer than I would have felt back home. So I was really, I'm a bit more careful.
Yeah. I actually have to relate with you on this. Again, Montana is not the most open and accepting place. I was fortunate enough to live in Bozeman, which is technically it's a very open and accepting environment. There have been a few problems along the way, but just seeing how everyone was accepting and supporting of the LGBTQ plus community there kind of opened my eyes into how a supportive environment could be, or like the first step of how a supportive environment could be. And yeah, I feel privileged in that sense because I lived in a community that was accepting, but I know that this is not the case for everyone. And it's very important to shed lights on, the US generally is a very open and liberal country, but also each community and each maybe city or state has its own share of problems and challenges as well. Tim and Anne-Laure, what do you guys think about this?
Yeah, so I think for me personally, as a white cis man, I think I've had, the benefits of certain privileges when I travel abroad. I also when I lived abroad, I was in Germany in a metropolitan area in Germany, and so I felt pretty safe. It was a very, liberal, politically liberal community, very accepting. I've certainly traveled to other places, even in America, where I feel less safe and less willing to, say certain things or act a certain way, and I have to kind of cover up or try to be more straight acting as best I can. But I think overall, this is a harder question for me because I just have to acknowledge that I've had privileges that others haven't. But working in Fulbright PRISM, I've certainly heard and seen a lot of different experiences out there, and that's part of kind of the reason why we formed the organization. We've seen instances of discrimination and verbal abuse. Thankfully, nothing violent that I know of, but just we can see the queer Fulbrighters going out into these communities that are not as accepting and not as open, and it causes a lot of conflict for them. And it really hurts. It really breaks my heart to see them have to go through this, and it's really impressive to see the resilience that they exhibit. But yeah, it's definitely a hard thing. I think. We definitely need more resources like Fulbright PRISM. within the international education community, for those who are going into more hostile environments that may need specific support in those communities. But yeah, it's not easy for everyone everywhere.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you, Tim. And Lord?
Yeah, so similarly to Tim, I am a cis white woman. As I said before, straight passing, so that does grant me a lot of privilege, especially in the South of the United States. I am white, I am blonde. I do fit in the crowd, like people would assume that I'm American, because I don't look, I mean, there's no way to look French, but I don't look like I'm French, and I don't think I sound too French also. So I do have that benefit of the doubt that I'm not foreign nor queer. And as a lesbian, it's difficult to gauge when I want to be out and when not. Tim mentioned a little bit of the straight bars and all of that. And you know, sometimes how you want to say no to people, and I don't want to be like, I'm sorry, I'm into girls, or I'm sorry, I'm gay, I'm a lesbian, because the common answer is, oh, I'm a lesbian too, or oh, I'm gay too, I like women, and or oh, can I join? How many times I had been with a partner outside in public, a little bit of PDA, and you know, man stopping, staring, it's always men, sorry, but it's always men. And it's something like, my roommate last year, I chose to live with my roommate because he was out as a trans person, but in South Carolina, there is no protection for discrimination towards the gay community, especially in housing and stuff like that. So for example, he was not out to our landlord, and I had to dead name him. And that felt really weird to me. And of course, I was respecting his wishes and I was doing as he would, but he does look more stereotypically gay than I do. So he was telling me all about that. And I know the intersection of my identities does equal privilege most of the time. And I am very grateful to be in a state capital, but we do have Trump rallies a lot on Main Street. So I do have to I won't say be careful who I am with, but I did have to learn to give people the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if I can be super close friends with people who politics do not align with who I am as a person, as an immigrant and as a queer person. But I think people tend to forget that about me, as I said, because I don't look like that. And my partner's in France. She doesn't visit a lot. So it's easy to just, even though, as I said, I do claim that I'm gay all the time. So you can't really forget, but I think people tend to assume a lot of things about that, especially in South Carolina.
I think it's unfortunate that we're still in 2023 and the LGBTQ plus individuals still have to hide part of themselves in order not to fit in, but in order to survive and protect themselves from getting harmed. And when you think about it, that's very unfortunate. I know a lot of individuals who had great experiences coming out at a young age with having supportive families, but that's not the case for everyone. And having already lived half or 3/4 of your life hiding, and you feel like, yeah, I'm gonna travel to a new country or like a new city or a new state, and I can finally be out and live authentically, and having again to hide yourself because you're feared of getting harmed or assaulted or whatever, it's heartbreaking. Despite all the progress that we've made, I feel like we still have a long way to go before every and single individual can feel included and safe and protected as well. And Tim, this actually brings me to my second question, which is actually for you about Fulbright PRISM. So as we know that Fulbright PRISM has become a platform for all the LGBTQ plus Fulbrighters. Can you please share like a backstory of how this organization came to be and what were the driving factors to its creation as well?
Yeah, I would love to. So Fulbright PRISM was founded by myself as well as my dear friends Laura Steinecke and Michaela Gill, who both did their Fulbright ETA grants with me in Hamburg, Germany. It started about, I think, a year after we had finished our grants, actually. We had a great time, doing our grant, probably one of the best years of all of our lives, and we were really grateful for each other's friendships. But I think following that year, we started to hear a lot of stories through the alumni community about, like what I was mentioning earlier, a lot of queer Fulbrighters facing discrimination in the workplace, or having an issue with their landlord, or having an issue with even the Fulbright Commission in their host country at some points. Comments about what they're dressing like, or comments about the pronouns that they use, or not using the proper name that they've requested to use. And so we were hearing about these experiences, and at the same time as that was kind of going on, we saw this new Instagram page called Fulbright Noir, which was meant to center Black voices and Black Fulbrighters. And we were just really inspired by that. We thought it was very cool to have kind of a centralized social media presence, like highlighting these experiences, both as a way to lift up and celebrate those experiences, but also kind of serve as a landing pad for, support and outreach and networking. So we had kind of that inspiration, and we had these issues on the other hand, and we're like, well, what can we do? And so we thought, maybe we need like a queer space, or a queer network. And so that's kind of how it got started. We started with just the Instagram page, highlighting people's stories and experiences. We quickly realized that was a little bit challenging. A lot of people were afraid to be out, or were afraid to share their stories. We still have that issue with getting people to share. We hear some really powerful, unique stories that I find really inspiring, and I think others would find inspiring. And I think it's a shame that we can't always share those because of the fallout that it would happen after they share. They might have issues with their family. They might be targeted at work, or they might be targeted in their country if somebody finds out that they're queer. And so we thought, okay, well, what else can we do to help this community and kind of, make our little difference in the world if we can't be, as public as we want to be. And so that's kind of how our website and other resources developed. So now we kind of we aim to serve as kind of a centralized point for sharing resources and connecting people to each other. A lot of it is a little bit more behind the scenes than we would like, but we do really try our best to be the public voice and kind of be the public presentation that other people can rely on without having to out themselves and without having to risk backlash or discrimination.
Tim,
Can I just say, I've been living. Oh, sorry.
No,
I just
go
wanted
ahead.
to say I've been living under a stone. I did not know about this at all. I didn't know about neither of those pages, and I've been looking you guys up now on Instagram. I followed you, but this is really cool. I wish I knew about this sooner.
Thanks, Claire. Unfortunately, we're not, at least this year, we weren't as active as we would like to be. It's a voluntary gig that we all do. We all do it kind of as a hobby in our free time, but we still try our best to keep things going.
To all of our listeners and viewers, if you want to know more about the initiatives and the support that Fulbright PRISM offers to the Fulbright scholars, we're going to have a link on the screen and a description. You can go and check their website and their social medias as well. Then I actually still have another question for you about Fulbright PRISM. Let's say in the future, in 5, 10, 15, 2 years, maybe, I don't know. What are the goals or aspirations that you want this organization to achieve, especially in terms of support to Fulbrighters and advocating as well?
Yeah, great question. So at a base level, I would like us to be a little bit more functional than we are right now. Like I said, we're all volunteers, and so this year particularly has been hard with all of our full-time jobs, and some of us have gotten married and moved, and it's as an organization, the 13 of us that, you know, do all the various different roles, it's been hard, I think, to kind of keep it all going. So I think now we're kind of talking about terms of succession and like future proofing our organization so that we can kind of keep momentum going year to year, despite whatever kind of personal challenges we might be having. So I think this is a very like base level, but I think, yeah, like having something consistent that's responsive and active month to month would be a great goal. And I think that actually, you know, for a volunteer organization in a space that otherwise doesn't receive a ton of funding, a ton of support from, you know, the people that we're trying to help, i.e. the Fulbright
Mhm.
program. I think that in and of itself is a is a good objective to have. I think, you know, we're out here doing a free service that I think is making a difference for some people, and I think is really needed for the Fulbright community and the broader international education community. So I think that, you know, just successfully kind of maintaining our presence and our voice sounds small, but is
Mhm.
really important given the context. I would really like to see us grow our programming. It's really hard for an organization that seeks to engage people globally with such a small team to, you know,
Sure.
have monthly events that, you know, bring in people from all over the world. The pandemic helped us for a little bit actually, because everyone had switched to Zoom and was really excited about it and was used to doing that. And so we had some really fun Zoom events during the pandemic. But now that you know, Zoom fatigue has set in, it's becoming harder and harder to get people to sign on and come to events online. And unfortunately, we just don't have the budget to do in-person stuff. So I think, yeah, I think we would probably like to grow our fundraising a little bit more so we can afford to do in-person events here and there, grow our programming. We did a pilot program of a mentorship program this year. I'd like to see that grow. Every 5 years, we're trying to do a kind of a global survey of queer experiences in the Fulbright community that produces some pretty good, interesting data, since the Fulbright program has historically not collected any sort of statistics or data on queer experiences, or even just like queer demographics. We
Mhm.
tried for probably 2 years and even issued a FOIA request to get like any sort of like how many queer Fulbrighters are there? Like who are the people that, you know, you purport to try to support in these programs, and they just don't have the data, and that's kind of hard to support people or, you know, identify holes in the system when you don't have statistics or information on the demographic that you're trying to help. So we've kind of stepped in to fill that role as well. So I think hopefully in I think 2 more years we'll do our 5 year survey to continue to monitor things. And yeah, so I think overall just kind of keep pushing all of our different prongs of programming that we do. Hopefully over the next 5-10 years we'll be the kind of the known organization within the Fulbright community for queer voices, and known as a queer safe space for people to come and find alumni and professionals and just grantees and all the great resources that we have to offer.
Well, thank you, Tim. I have to say, I've personally learned a lot through Fulbright PRISM. I didn't know about the organization before I joined as a Fulbright scholar, and now that I've known about it, I think it's become like an integral part of not my life, but in a sense is this is something that every Fulbrighter needs to know about. You don't have to be gay, a part of the LGBT community to know about what Fulbright PRISM is doing and the support it's giving. It's an educational platform at the end of the day. So again, thank you so much, Tim, for having this idea of creating something that doesn't only benefit the queer Fulbrighters, but also everyone, and sharing more information and knowledge and actual facts about what it means to be a queer exchange student. So thank you for that. Guys, this brings us to our very last question. What's like one piece of advice or like insight you would share to with anyone like listening or viewing this video today about what it means to be a queer person or a queer adjacent person? This is a very difficult question, I know, but I love it.
What advice do you have? Let's start with you.
Oh my God.
Like, what advice would you give?
Oh, how the turntables.
Yes. Okay. So actually, my piece of advice is just be open. The world is not lived in black and white. Nothing is black and white in life. So just having this mindset of growth and learning and just accepting other people as they are without having the need to change something or the need to control something is just a better use of everyone's time, I guess. Again, throughout my experience in US, I've met some amazing individuals, artists, poets, social workers, athletes, everyone from every domain who are queer or like queer adjacent. And the amount of wisdom and understanding and empathy that they have shown me has grown my mindset and expanded my viewpoint of life and individuals, and I cannot explain it. Actually, it's like indescribable people. So just don't judge before you meet a person or before you actually talk to a person. Just having that mindset will help you grow a lot and learn more about the world that we live in. Yeah, that's my piece of advice. What about you guys? Okay.
I can go next if no one's
Yes.
chomping at the bit. I think, yeah, I mean, when you're traveling outside of your home, your space to something new, it can be really exciting and really scary. And I think it's important. This is kind of a general comment, not with just respect to LGBTQ people, but I think having some patience and having some resiliency in listening to others and trying to figure out the different experiences that they're going through can be really rewarding. It can be really shitty. Sorry, can I say that on this podcast? It can be really
no, it's okay.
It can be really disappointing sometimes, but it can also be really enlightening and really helpful to listen to other people's experiences and listen to kind of what they're going through. I think for LGBTQ people particularly, I had mentioned again resilience earlier. I think it does take some personal resilience and some personal kind of knowledge of yourself to know where your boundaries are and what you need in order to keep your sanity really and keep your strength and self-heal and self-soothe. So I think when I was traveling abroad, I had mentioned, because of the privilege that I have, I didn't face too many issues as a LGBTQ Fulbrighter abroad, but it was really exhausting being a foreigner in a different land. And so I had to find ways to kind of withdraw and like figure out, okay, how am I going to like reconnect with myself and just take time to like heal and let this process take its course, because it can be really exhausting. And so then you add the LGBTQ component on top of that, and for some people who it may be harder because they're not as privileged as me, then it's even harder. So it does take a lot of resilience, but it's also knowledge of self and knowing where your boundaries are and what you need to do to heal yourself, because it can be tiring. So I think just don't be afraid to be patient with yourself and others, but also don't be afraid to take time for yourself. You don't have to, change the world. Sometimes it's important to just take care of yourself.
I love that so much.
I love that too. I really connect to what both of you have said. And I wanted to say something similar to him. I wanted to say take it slow. When you're about to leave, it's all exciting and you're nervous and hopefully you did some research and you have all these ideas of what you want to do. But when you get there, and I think especially the first couple of months, it can also be very tough to be kind of in that foreigner category, to be like somewhere where you're not familiar, because there's a lot of things you never expected that it would be different, right? I remember coming here and then realizing that the bus was completely different. Now I have to say I'm also autistic, so that's like an added, difficulty. But I remember freaking out because the bus was so different, and it tires you out so much at the end of the day. So I also wanted to say, take it slow and make sure that you do some research beforehand, and that there are communities or people that you can connect to when you get there. So, you might have some anxiety or you might experience depression, make sure that there are people out there that you can contact. Maybe a study organization that centers queer people, or maybe some students, or maybe through your advisor. Make sure that there are people out there who you can connect with and that can support you when you're there, because when you do that in the moment, when you're going through the anxiety and depression, it's not going to happen. You're going to isolate yourself. Don't do that. Be prepared, have that plan ready.
Thank you, Claire.
Along the same lines, I was going to say, find your people. Cultural shock is real. We're all in this honeymoon period. Everything's new and exciting, and challenging. And you can be anxious, and you can feel like it's overwhelming, and you can feel like you're alone and that you have to hide, and you don't know where to start. There are people at US universities within the Fulbright community, through Fulbright PRISM, through alumni, through other Fulbrighters that, like us, are still in the US for a couple more years. And there will always be someone, at least in the Fulbright community, that relates, that's either coming from where you're from or around where you are. And that's the beauty of networking. And we learned that being here, there'll always be someone, even close to you. You don't be afraid to meet people. And I know I'm an extrovert, so it might sound easier for me, but it just gets so much better when you finally can take that pressure off and find someone you can talk to, and just someone that can relate, whether it's over the phone, over Zoom like this, or just going out for coffee, a couple minutes, a phone call away. I want to be a resource like that for people. That's why I'm in DEI. That's why I'm in the LGBTQ community. I'm also in my graduate English association. I'm everywhere just because I want to be that person that I was looking for when I came here. And I wanted queer friends. I wanted international friends. I wanted people who felt like they did not belong. That imposter syndrome eats you really hard in grad school and abroad, and you feel like your English is not good enough, that you're not gay enough, or that you're not good enough, really. And I feel like that's why I chose to do this podcast, and I do believe that's also why Tim and Claire are here, to remind everyone that in LGBTQ community, there is the sense of community, and some of us come from really communal countries or went to countries where community is really important, and we want to replicate that in spaces that feel foreign to us, because we are foreign in the US, but these spaces are what is foreign to us. So that switch of mindset and finding your people, whoever they are, is what I love about being queer, among other things, and what I would say to people listening.
This is amazing. And I also have to emphasize on a word you said. There's no one true way to be gay or queer. And I think this is something a lot of queer people struggle with, is like we see either online or social media, like there's the stereotype of what it means to be gay or lesbian or trans or whatever. And if you don't fit into the stereotype, you might feel excluded and not part of the community. And just having the mindset that there is no one way to be something or someone is actually very important, and to getting out of yourself and getting into the mindset of I am part of the community. I'm just as important as everyone else. I have a voice, I have a cause, and together we can create something. And thank you guys so much for being part of this podcast and this episode, because again, this podcast is in Lebanon, and there's not a lot of talk about what it means to be a queer person. And I want someone, whoever is listening to this podcast, to feel like, okay, I learned something, or I'm not a freak, or I can belong somewhere, or like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So sharing your experiences, sharing your insights with us today I'm really sure that we're going to be able to inspire someone to be themselves and just go out and create something in the world. So thank you. And this wraps up the new episode of Voices Beyond Borders. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it informational and beneficial as well. If you liked it, please make sure to subscribe and follow us on social media because there's a lot of more episodes coming very soon. My name is Francesco Bajos, I was your host, and this is Voices Beyond Borders.